If you think it's so easy to make an original alien, make your own. So you want to know what I did?
I said, bet.
Hello everybody, it's me, Duplos, and I'm back with yet another video for all of you. And yes, basing on the background, this is a Ben 10 video. This is the one that won the vote, so this is the one that's coming first. By the way, I do post on my community section, and if you've been keeping up to date with that, then you already know what this video is about. If you don't know, this is me accepting a challenge from one of my viewers, specifically from the group of videos from the Ben 10 Tenathon, where I ranked all of the Ben 10 aliens and a couple of other things. And I have been getting suggestions from those other videos, and I will be doing all of them, trust me. Any suggestions you leave in the comments, I will do a video on. As long as your idea isn't iffy. If not, I will totally make a video on it. But I got a comment on my ranking ultimates video that really caught my eye. At Olo Toy in a Deshola 1525, God, I hope I'm saying that name right, commented, and I quote, "If you are thinking that it is easy to make Ben 10, you make your own Ben 10, and you are going to have to send it to me." So, in my ranking videos, I basically say a bunch of these aliens are super unoriginal. I don't think it's easy to make a TV show. That is gotta be very difficult, especially with, like, executives breathing down your neck. But I took it as, if you think it's so easy to make an original alien, make your own. So you wanna know what I did?
I said, bet.
So my quest began to make 10 original Ben 10 aliens. And for a bit more of a challenge, I based it off the original 10 and tried to fill in those slots. But in the process of making this video, I got bored. So I based another 10 aliens off the Alien Force roster and made another 10 aliens. So now you guys get 20 whole aliens. Now I'm going to explain how this video is going to work, and then we'll get into it. First things first, I'm going to talk about the aliens themselves. I'm going to show you them, I'm going to let you hear the voices I came up with for these aliens, I'm going to tell you their names, I'm going to tell you what inspired me to make these aliens, and of course I'm going to tell you how they work and how their powers are and how they work in a fight. And also put them in groups of aliens that already exist in Ben 10. And finally, giving myself a rating on how good of a job I think I did on these aliens. Then, I'm going to describe how I came up with these aliens, how long did it take me at minimal, and which was the hardest alien to come up with. And finally, then I'm going to give a rating on how difficult really is it to make an original Ben 10 alien. But with all of that being said, don't forget to do what every other YouTuber has ever said to do in any video on YouTube, and let's get into my original aliens. Salolighter! Now, I know I say the names as the aliens, but I'm just gonna say their names normally. This is Salolighter. This is my fire alien. Yes, I made a salamander my fire alien, and I'll explain why. Okay, so we're gonna talk about his physical attributes before we talk about his powers. So, unlike every other fire alien, Salolighter is terrible in a physical hand-to-hand fight. He has basic human durability, and he's weaker than even your average human. He is not a strength alien in the least bit of the word. He's a ranged alien and a ranged alien alone. So he's not good in a hand-to-hand fight. If there was a person I'd say he could physically maybe beat in a fight, is Dr. Animo, without any of his tech. And this alien's height's around about 5'8". Like, he's not incredibly short, but he's not incredibly tall either. But, again, this alien's not meant for physical fighting. He's meant for range, and that's where his powers come in. We're gonna get the most simple one out of the way, and it's that he's incredibly slippery, like Walkatrout. If you try and grab him, he will physically slip out of your hands like a bar of soap in the bathtub. Now, the main base for this alien is a salamander, and of course, an axolotl based on the gills. Now, this may sound gross, but both of them can secrete mucus from their bodies. And Salolighter can do that. But the mucus he secretes is like oil. And he can shoot this mucus out of the palms of his hands, and he can shoot a spitball of mucus out of his mouth, which would cover his enemy completely in mucus, aka oil. And yes, Salolighter has the innate ability to ignite his mucus, so he can shoot a stream of fire out of his hands or shoot out a fireball. Also, he physically cannot get burned or hurt by his fire, or any fire for that matter. So this alien can just casually light himself on fire. So for an example of how this alien will fight, say he's fighting Vilgax. We're gonna say all of these guys are fighting Vilgax. So he would keep his distance, cover Vilgax in oil, and then shoot out a fireball, and even the smallest flame can ignite oil, and boom! Vilgax ignites in the fire, and the fire can stay there for up to 30 seconds before it falls off. which basically means the oil falls off Vilgax's body. And it's difficult to put out the flame because the flame is on oil. And if you put out that fire, then the next fire you try and put out would probably light your hand on fire. The only thing that can get Salolighter's mucus off of you is water. And speaking of water, since he has gills, Salolighter can breathe underwater. While in the water, Salolighter loses his ability to ignite his mucus, but he can still make his mucus come out, which means he can quite literally pollute the water with oil, jump out of the water, and ignite the water on fire. This alien's only weaknesses is how weak he is in a physical fight, and also that he's just the ultimate form of pollution. Like, if there was an alien based on pollution, this would be the alien. Now, if I was giving him a rating compared to every other fire alien, I'd give him a 6 out of 10. I think I did pretty damn good with Salolighter.
Falcoy!
Falcoy is my flying alien. So Falcoy has basic superhuman durability and the smallest bit of superhuman strength. He's not another alien that's just like kicking and beating up things. I basically wanted to make a better version of Kick and Hawk. He's a lot more mid to close range. Falcoy stands at a nice 6 feet tall, and his powers are interesting. So Falcoy has the ability to create a sort of metal titanium-like alloy in his body. And he's basically able to soak his feathers in that alloy whenever they come out, making metal feathers. And Falcoy is able to throw these metal feathers out of his arms like throwing knives. And he's able to infinitely make these things. Also, Falcoy's talons on his hands are specifically made out of the same alloy the metal feathers are. So basically, this alien's a way more agile version of Kick and Hawk. But you're probably saying, he's your flying alien, right? Where's the flying part? I'm glad you asked, dear viewer, because see those little spikes on his arms? Whenever Falcoy is about to fly, he can retract his hands into his body and shed all of the metal feathers, growing an entire flurry of normal feathers, and those spikes pop out to form wings. Now, I didn't draw any art for that specific design, so just imagine there's bird wings. Now for this alien, even though it doesn't look like it, I used a peregrine falcon as reference for this alien. So just like a peregrine falcon, he is incredibly fast. He basically can hit the same speed a jet can hit. And most jets break the sound barrier, so yeah, that's pretty fast. And the last power this alien has is called Eagle Vision. Now based on that, yes, he has incredibly good eyesight. But paired with that, Falcoy has infrared, thermal, and night vision that he can completely control. So you cannot hide from this bird's eyes. Now you're probably wondering, what are this alien's weaknesses? The only real weakness Falcoy has is that when he's flying, he can't use any of his metal. And since the talons on Falcoy's feet are just normal talons, he can't exactly use the metal ones. And if he wants to use any of his metal abilities, he has to be grounded. But that really doesn't matter when you're breaking the sound barrier. And if I were to give Falcoy a personal rating, I would give him a 5, because he's a good alien, but not one of my favorites. Swolfe! This is one of the aliens I was the most passionate in making. Swolfe is my speed alien. The last speed alien Ben 10 made was by far the most unoriginal alien of all time, which is Fast Track. Fast Track is a glorified version of Accelerate. His whole thing is that he's fast, just like Accelerate. And basically my goal with this alien was to outdo Fast Track, which honestly isn't that difficult, but whatever. When it comes to the durability, he's weaker than your average human. He can't exactly take a punch, but that's why he's the speed alien. And he's got basic human strength. Swolfe's height is 6'4". One of Swolfe's powers is pretty obvious. He's got super speed. It's super speed. Swolfe is incredibly fast. He can easily break the sound barrier with his speed, but he is not light speed. I would say he's a little slower than Accelerate. But the thing that makes Swolfe different from every other speed alien is that he's actually also an electric alien as well. Right at the end of Swolfe's legs is actually made out of pure plasma, and his legs conduct an electricity allowing him to run as fast as he does. But also his claws and teeth are made out of pure plasma, and can easily cut through metal, basically working like a lightsaber. And to pair all of that together, he can also conduct his own electricity and give you a shocking punch. Also, if he were to kick you, it'd be like getting struck by lightning. Even though Swolfe has basic human strength, paired with his speed, it might as well be super strength. With one of Swolfe's super speed punches, he'd be able to knock a character like Vilgax off balance. And since he can conduct his own electricity, he can also punch you with an electric shock whenever the punch lands. And finally, he can think faster than your average human. It still bends average intellect, it's just that he thinks faster. And now that sounds like a good power, but that is actually his Achilles heel. Just as fast as Swolfe can think, he can get confused just as quick. Or way overthink things. If I were to give myself a rating for this alien, it would be a 6 out of 10. I think I outdid Fast Track. I don't care what anyone says. Akra! Now, I know what you're thinking. What the hell is that? This is Akra. He's a mixture of a water and an ice alien. Originally, I had another water alien named Whalenar, but midway through making this list, I came up with Akra and replaced Whalenar with Akra. Now, I know what you're mainly asking. What is he? Akra is a giant cell that has the ability to manipulate the molecules within water. And when I say giant, I mean like he's around about the same size as a basketball. But if you see Akra like this, he's most likely slowly dying because out of the water, he just slowly suffocates to death like Ripjaws. That's why I gave him the power of liquid manipulation, which basically means he can control all forms of liquid, but specifically water, but he can control all forms of liquid. Though even with that power, he would still suffocate to death the minute Ben turns into him. But since goop comes with the goop that he's made out of, Akra comes with the water that Akra is basically made out of. And to give him more versatility outside of the water, I gave him the ability to do this. Akra. This is Akra's ice form. Akra has the ability to freeze water into solid ice. And it's not like one good hit and it shatters ice. No, it's very durable, close to Diamond Head's level of durability, but not as durable. Speaking of Diamond Head, his powers are very similar to Diamond Head's in this form. He can morph his body into whatever he wants and then freeze it, including turning his body into projectiles. He can control and freeze water so he can make structures and basically whatever he wants out of ice. And he can morph the ice body into whatever he wants. So there is no one specific design for Akra, he can look like however he wants. He has superhuman durability and basic superhuman strength in this form, and on land with no other water around is just a genuine threat of an alien. But once you put him in a large body of water, oh god. Akra's water form is by far the most busted out of all my basic aliens. To give you an example of how strong this alien can be, especially when it comes to his physical size, oh god, he can get as big, if not bigger, than way big. Yeah, the way big that's, well, in its name, way big. Akra could morph an entire lake into a giant humanoid form and then freeze it all. Or if you're a part of Ripjaw species and one of Ben's enemies, he could just cut off your oxygen in the water. And I bet you can only imagine what he can do with the ocean. Just to give you reference on how overpowered this is, our planet is 70% made of ocean. Which means this alien alone can control 70% of this planet by himself, let alone the planet Ripjaw species is from, which is completely made up of water. This alien is quite literally powerful enough to make the ocean his weapon, and all that's controlling it is a single cell. And you cannot physically hurt Akra unless you hurt the cell. So if I were to say Akra's like any alien, I'd say he's like a more OP version of Goop. If I were to give myself a rating on this alien, I would give myself a 7 out of 10. This alien is amazing. Akra is probably one of my favorite out of all the aliens I made.
Rizzard, yeah!
This is Rizzard, my super intelligent alien. Once I explain his powers, it'll make sense. Rizzard has basic human durability and normal raccoon strength. He stands at 3 feet 3 inches. The best way to describe his powers for a physical fight is one word. Magic raccoon. He is quite literally a magic raccoon, and let me explain how he is a magic raccoon. In the Ben 10 universe, there's a thing called mana, which is what Gwen uses. But you see, most of the aliens that use mana don't have DNA. So I decided to give Ben an alien that not only has DNA, but also uses mana. And the way he learns how to use Rizzard is via Gwen, of course. So anything Gwen can do, Rizzard can do better. But you're probably like, well, that's all well and cool, but how is he the intelligent alien? You see, Rizzard has another power called Enlightenment. You see, Rizzard species are enlightened. They know all of the secrets of the universe, and more, and the only being that can even come close to their intelligence is Azimuth himself. And just for reference, Azimuth is the smartest being in 5 separate galaxies. And Azimuth is still intelligent, but not as intelligent as the most intelligent of Rizzard species. So when Ben enters this state of enlightenment, he is smarter than Grey Matter and Brainstorm combined. But Rizzard does have a weakness, which is his intelligence. Remember when Albedo got Azimuth's intelligence and became passive? That's what happens when Rizzard uses his enlightenment. It just makes it to where this alien just does not care about what happens next. You physically have to negotiate with him in order for him to do anything. And because Rizzard's intelligence is so high above, Ben forgets everything in this state. It's Ben in control, but it's not Ben at the same time. And the reason why he forgets is because this species quite literally can see the end of the universe, can see the end of all living things. And if any mortal were to see it, they would go completely insane. So the Omnitrix manually makes Ben forget being in his enlightened state. If I were to give this alien a rating, I would give him a 7 just because I loved making him.
Masculand.
This is Masculand, my least favorite out of the original 10 aliens I made. For context, this is my super strength alien. And there's so many aliens like that, it's bewildering. And I genuinely wish I could have came up with something better and more original, but this is the best I got. This alien obviously has superhuman durability and superhuman strength. And if I were to say an alien that's physically stronger than Masculand, it would be Wrath. He's just a little weaker than Wrath. And he is absolutely nowhere near as strong as Forearms or Humongousaur. And Masculand stands at 8 feet tall. Now for his powers, obviously super strength, that's an obvious one. Second is the tiny little arms attached to the side of his body. Yeah, those have stingers, and this alien's based off a bullet ant. So when this alien stings you with those stingers, it feels like the way a bullet ant sting would feel. And I think you can tell how it feels to be stung by one of those things based on the name of the ant. Also, this alien has the ability to clone himself, like Ditto or Echo Echo. And the max amount of clones Masculine can make are 50. Now, that sounds incredibly overpowered, but his cons much outweigh his pros. Now, this alien is one of the aliens I have made that are like Wrath, where one of the physical personality traits from the species carry on into Ben's form. For example, Wrath's species, or Apoplexians, are naturally overly angry, so that's how Wrath is. And that's kind of how Masculine works. But instead of making the user incredibly angry, Masculine species makes the user incredibly stupid. Masculine's entire species are basically like gym bros. They only care about one thing, and that's pumping iron and drinking protein shakes. Basically, he's like the Ben 10 villain Fistrict. This alien's a complete idiot and never knows what's going on. But he can fight. At least. And he does kind of know when to clone himself. But if I were to give this alien a rating, I'd give him a 4 out of 10. I think I could have been way more original, but it's just that I couldn't come up with any ideas. This is Blend-Ark. Blend-Ark's an alien I made with no specific power set in mind. But if I were to compare him to an alien that already exists, it would actually be Ghost Freak. Because they're both aliens of nightmares. But I think I made Blend-Ark way worse. He has extreme superhuman durability, if you can even actually hit him, and superhuman strength. Now for the powers. Now this alien has a power I like to call Shadow Manipulation. This basically gives him the ability to move through and control shadows. He can morph the shadows into whatever he wants. He can make shadow minions, which are taken out by one punch but are still terrifying. And if you've ever seen a shadow person, then you've seen what a shadow minion looks like. Also, this is what Blend-Ark looks like out in the sunlight, which would be a rare sight to see. By the way, he can make an infinite amount of those tentacles on his body. And the tentacles work the way the ink in Bendy and the Ink Machine works. They're solid, but they're oozing like ink off of them. Also, he has the ability to create smog. And the smog is potent enough to block out the sun and create an entire area of shadow for him to control. Also, this alien has the innate ability to feed off fear. Also, he has an aura that quite literally strikes fear into whoever's in it. So unless you're a villain like Ziskera or Vilgax, you're just gonna instantly fear this thing and feed it. Or if somebody's having a nightmare nearby, he feeds off the fear from the nightmare. And because of his aura, if somebody's sleeping near him, bystander or not, they will have a nightmare of this alien and feed it. And oh yeah, by the way, the more fear this alien consumes, the stronger it gets. And you're probably like, what's its weakness? It doesn't have one. You just have to purely overpower this thing, or hope there's no fear nearby for it to feed off of. Blend-Ark is the definition of an alien that's meant to be terrifying. By the way, his skull is a mixture of the top part of a human skull and the bottom part of a gorilla skull. If I were to give this alien a rating, I would give it a 7 out of 10. I think I did a really good job with Blend-Ark, especially for what I was going for with this alien, which was be scary.
Repstone.
This is Repstone. Now, my idea with this alien is that I wanted to give this alien a power that no other alien in the entire Ben 10 universe has had, ever. And that's really difficult when there's so many different aliens that have so many different powers. But I did it! Now, you could argue Repstone's like Diamond Head, but he's really not when you look at what his powers do and what Diamond Head's powers do. They're similar, but they're different. But getting into what he can do, he has superhuman durability that's just as good, if not better, than Diamond Head's. Super strength that's equivalent to Humongousaur's strength, and stands at a whopping 18 feet tall. Repstone is a big boy. Now for his powers. His powers are probably the most interesting part about Repstone. He has the power I like to call stone manipulation, which basically means he can quite literally bend the earth to his will. He can quite literally make any terrain whatever he wants. You could be standing in the middle of the desert, and if Repstone comes out, he can make the desert an arena. And he doesn't just morph it, he can transform it into whatever he wants. So one minute it could be solid rock, next minute it could be steel. Or it could be dirt, and then he could turn it into a gem. Any form of natural ore or material, he can morph. Also, because he's quite literally made out of rock, he can morph his body into whatever he wants. Which means he can morph his hand into a giant sword. Or take the crystals in his back and shoot them off like missiles. Cover his already armored body in even more armor. Also, he can launch himself using the earth and just jump around at incredible heights. But this alien does have two weaknesses: speed and water. This alien's incredibly durable and incredibly powerful, but incredibly slow. If Clockwork and him were to get into a race and Clockwork wasn't using his time abilities, Clockwork would win. He is incredibly slow and lumbering, but if you were being chased by him in the Grand Canyon, he'd be able to catch up to you because he's able to launch himself. And of course, water. If you were to drop him in a lake, he would sink to the bottom immediately. And his species can't exactly breathe underwater, so yeah. If I were to give a rating to Repstone, it would be a 7 out of 10. I think I did a really good job with Repstone. I know what you're probably thinking. What in the Lovecraftian hell is that? This is Toxect. Toxect is basically what would happen if Stinkfly was absolute nightmare fuel. Toxect has basic superhuman durability and a little stronger than your average human. But his powers take him from looking terrifying to actually terrifying. Now, based on the design, you can tell he's based on a mosquito, plus I throw a little bit of Lovecraftian glory in there. So instead of sucking out blood or liquid out of something, he injects and shoots out liquid. Specifically the liquid from his sack on his rear. And what is the liquid? It's acid. He can inject you and shoot acid at you. This alien can quite literally melt somebody in a couple seconds. And if they're a super powerful alien or have armor, melt in a couple of minutes. This alien is by far the most dangerous when it comes to physical use. And obviously he has the mosquito mouth, but he also has similar appendages on his wrists that allow him to shoot out and inject more acid. And finally, you see the glowing green gill-like things? Those allow him to turn his acid into a form of gas that if you breathe in, you will melt. Quite literally. Which means he can easily crop dust things with acid gas. And this alien is just like the mosquito it's based off of, a walking hazard. And what's worse is that this alien really only has one downside, is that he can't fly. He can only glide and hover, which means he can't lift himself off the ground and propel himself in the air, but he is able to keep himself in the air for a good couple minutes, and to quote Buzz Lightyear, he falls with style, aka glides, which means he can still crop dust things, but he can't fly. If I were to give this alien a rating, it would be a 7 out of 10. I think I did a really good job on Toxect, and God, he is terrifying. Come on. I had to make a super powerful alien. And for the people that don't know what I mean by super powerful, I mean like Atomics, Clockwork, and Alien X levels of powerful. This alien is extremely durable for good reason. This alien has basic super strength, and he stands at a whopping 6 foot. Now for his powers, he is a quite literal living black hole, but his species instinctively made these suits of armor for them to stay in. So in a way he's kinda like NRG, but instead of an alien gone nuclear, instead he is a black hole. Now on his armor he has multiple points where he can open it up, and obviously whenever it opens up his armor it instantly creates a suction. And the places he can open his suit is, there's 2 hatches in the palm of his hands that he can open, and his face can split apart opening up his face. Kinda like the sister location animatronics from Five Nights at Freddy's. But that's not all. This alien also has the ability to create and control black holes. And whenever he creates a black hole, he can make it as large or small as he wants. Which basically means how much can it suck up. Just for an example, this alien can create a black hole small enough to absorb just a penny, or a black hole large enough to absorb multiple planets. But unlike NRG, he cannot exit the suit. He is stuck in the suit. Also, he can do something to the black holes called reverse suction, which basically means instead of sucking things up, he can push things away. Which means he can hover and fly, using black holes. And you're probably like, where does everything go once it gets sucked up by a black hole? Once something gets sucked up by Starvoid's black holes, they go to a pocket dimension, which is basically a void until it's filled up with stuff. And it works less like a small dimension that you can just put stuff in, like up Chuck's stomach, and more like its own entire universe. And just like all the other aliens like him, there really is no weakness to him. He's just an overpowered alien for the sake of being an overpowered alien. I would give Starvoid a 7 out of 10. I think I did a pretty damn good job on Starvoid.
Shoutbat.
Alright, so this is the first alien of the second roster of 10 aliens. This is Shoutbat. Yeah, I know, it's a really bad name. Shoutbat is a mixture of a flying alien and a sonic alien. He has basic superhuman durability, basic superhuman strength, and stands at 5'8". His powers consist of, well, obviously flight. He can fly. He's fast in the air, but he's nowhere near as fast as aliens like Jetray, Ashadactyl, and even my alien Falcoy. Though he is a good bit faster than Stinkfly, he also has echolocation. Basically, he can see with sound. And finally, a supersonic screech, like Echo Echo or Blitzwolfers. And as for weaknesses, he doesn't have any. He's quite literally a man-bat.
Get it?
And if I were to give myself a rating for this alien, it would be a 3. I could have been way more creative than this.
Bread.
Now, I know you're probably like, what the hell is that? This is Frad, and basically he's supposed to be the fusion of 2 different aliens' powers, like Swampfire. And the 2 aliens I picked just so happen to be Ben's worst aliens. And one extra teeny surprise. The 2 alien powers I decided to fuse together are Walkatrout and the worst powers. This alien is invulnerable, that's his durability, he's physically invulnerable, and he has no physical strength. Because he has no fucking arms. And standing at an amazing 1.5 feet tall. His powers consist of being extremely slippery, he's invulnerable so he cannot be physically harmed, and he can kind of jump high. The downside of those powers is that he can't physically fight, and even though he's invulnerable, he can still feel physical pain. But there is one power that this alien has that is actually insanely overpowered. So this alien has no tongue. And the reason why he doesn't have a tongue is because he can unhinge his jaw to eat things. Actually, this alien can unhinge his jaw so wide that he can swallow an entire galaxy with one gulp. Yes, I made this alien able to swallow an entire galaxy with one gulp. And the reason why he can do this is because his stomach is like Starvoid's black holes. He sends it to a pocket dimension that's basically like another universe. But there is a major downside to this broken power, and that is that his species does not need to sleep or eat. And they actually find it so appalling to put anything in their mouth that it transfers over to Ben's transformation. And this alien can't throw up like Upchuck, he just eats it. So this species has just adapted the mentality of don't eat anything. And if you do, you're disgusting. So in this form, Ben is so physically appalled to eat anything that he can't use this alien's full power. So Ben has no clue how powerful this alien truly is. He just thinks that he's a better version of Walkatrout and the worst. And the only Ben to truly know his power and can actually use it is my Ben 10K. Because they figured out he can eat galaxies. If I were to give this alien a rating, it would be a 7 out of 10. I love Frad to bits. Yes, Prygon. I decided to make Prygon a subspecies of a species that already exists in Ben 10. And I decided to make him a more rare version of this species, and just as, if not stronger, than the original species. Now you're probably like, what is this supposed to be a subspecies of? Prygon is the subspecies of the Toku stars, aka way big. Oh yeah, this is my giant alien. Superhuman durability. Obviously superhuman strength. And standing at a whopping 293 feet tall, Prygon is an absolute unit. Just like how Waybig's based off Ultraman, Prygon is based off the one and only king of the monsters himself, Godzilla, with the seasoning of the Baron of Hell from Doom. This alien can do everything Waybig can do, plus some. So Waybig has the ability to cross his arms together and shoot an energy-based beam. Prygon, on the other hand, has the ability to breathe fire and shoot an energy-based beam out of his mouth. Also, Prygon has extremely sharp claws, and the spines on his back are like razors. Also, this alien is extremely hard-headed and can ram things extremely well. And of course, there's his tail. But, you know, that's just like Waybig. I need to add something else to make him more than just a clone of Waybig. Prygon has the ability to light himself on fire. Actually, this alien's immune to all forms of heat, including the sun. Actually, Prygon can absorb heat and then expel it out, and will quite literally be hot to the touch. And if he was that hot, and standing in the middle of New York City, he could melt it in a day. The entire city melted. And if he does get that hot, he can cause a burst of heat off of his body, which would be the equivalent of a knockback of a nuclear bomb. And of course would be incredibly hot. The only downside to this alien is that he can't regulate his temperature. So if this alien's in burning mode, it would literally take him turning back into Ben for him not to melt an entire city. If I were to give Prygon a ranking, it would be 8. I love Prygon.
Shroom Doom!
This is Shroom Doom. If you can't tell, this alien's a plant alien, but also an energy absorption alien, like chromosome or feedback. This alien has superhuman durability, basic superhuman strength, and stands at 6'3". His powers consist of his body is made out of wood, he can sprout branches from his body, he can make brand new limbs, and he also has regeneration. Now, the way Shroom Doom absorbs energy is via his Pilius, aka the thing on the top of his head. He can absorb the energy via any white parts on his body, and they go to the top of the Pilius, making the spots. And he can turn the energy into grenades. And what are grenades, you ask? Grenades are mushroom grenades, which means he can throw explosives off at the top of his head. But Shroom Doom does have another power, called fungi manipulation, which means he can control and create all forms of fungus. And yes, of course, that includes mushrooms. And all of the fungus are stronger variants of what fungus actually exist on Earth. And Shroom Doom also has the ability to make sentient mushrooms that can fight for him. And they're basically crazy little mushroom people. And his only weakness is fire. And I think we all know why his weakness is fire. If I were to give myself a rating on this alien, it would be a 5 out of 10. It's cool powers, but a meh design.
Aquil Raptor!
This is Akra Raptor. He is another subspecies to another species in Ben 10. A subspecies of Humongosaur, which in Ben 10 already has another canon subspecies, which is Astrodactyl. He's got basic superhuman durability, basic superhuman strength, and stands at 5'8". This alien has superhuman agility, which means he's faster than your average human. He doesn't have super speed, but he's faster than your average human, and a lot more flexible and agile. And that's literally it. He has no other powers, he's just extremely agile. He doesn't have a weakness, it's just you gotta outdo him in speed and power. If I were to give myself a rating, I would give myself a 3 out of 10 for this alien. It's kind of boring, doesn't have any cool powers. I wasn't able to come up with that interesting of a design, but it's still more original than Fast Track.
Croc Frost!
This is Croc Frost, my ice alien. He has superhuman durability, superhuman strength, and stands at 7 feet tall. For powers, he has a tail and he can bite things. But he does have something else. As you can see, there is a large vein popping out of Croc Frost's wrist. Now that vein actually connects to a sac in Croc Frost's back. Now you're probably like, what is in the sac? A liquid that is like liquid nitrogen that he can shoot out of his vein and instantly freeze anything it touches. Basically, anything the liquid touches, instantly freezes. As for weaknesses, he doesn't really have any. He's just a giant alligator that can shoot liquid nitrogen. If I were to give myself a rating on this alien, it would be a 7 out of 10. I love Croc Frost.
Hacksense.
This is Hacksense, which is another one of my super intelligent aliens. He has basic superhuman durability and is as strong as your average human, and he hovers at a height of 5'5". Now this next power was actually inspired by another property's power, which is Overwatch. But his first power isn't, which is hyper-intelligence. He's extremely smart. This species specifically is the third smartest species in the galaxy next to the cerebro-crustaceans, aka brainstorm species. This next power I call molecular reworking. Basically what that means is that he has the ability to hack anything. Technology and living organisms alike. He can take over whatever he wants, whether it be a computer to let him open a door or just a person. He can tell any limbs or organs to shut down, or basically just do whatever he wants. He can also manipulate his own body and modify it and yes, turn invisible. These powers were specifically inspired by Sombra. And the next power is actually a different form for him.
Engaging showdown form.
You guys can debate in the comments whether Showdown form or Giga is a better title for this form, but I'll refer to him as both. Hacksense has the ability to transform his body into a more suitable form for combat. And that's this. In this form, he has extreme superhuman durability, extreme superhuman strength, and now stands at 11 feet. Now, in this form, he loses the ability to hack stuff, but he does gain a new ability called Projectile Punch. Basically, that means whenever he throws a punch, he throws out a beam of energy that is basically like an energy beam punch. Which basically means you could be on the other side of the room and he could punch you. These powers were specifically inspired by Ramatra. But this alien does have one major weakness, which is that he works like Masculand and Wrath, which basically means there's a trait that runs through the entire species that runs into Ben's version of the alien. With Wrath, it's anger. With Masculand, it's him being incredibly dumb. With Hacksense, it's his massive ego. This alien has an ego larger than 10-year-old Ben's ego. This alien thinks he is smarter than everyone else, and thinks he's stronger than anyone he is to ever fight. So he doesn't even bother going into a showdown form a quarter of the time because he just thinks he's that smart. The only time he ever uses a showdown form is when he gets the sense quite literally smacked into him. Then Hacksense's massive ego will be replaced with Ben's normal ego, which then he turns into his Giga form. If I were to give myself a rating on this alien, it would be a 6 out of 10 just because of how rocky it was making this alien. Because his original name was Aggressigens, aka if you were to shorten it, AI. And I did not like that name, so I changed it to Hacksense.
Flixaboon.
This is Flixaboon. He has extreme superhuman durability, basic superhuman strength, and stands at 5'9". His powers are very simple. He has the power of elasticity, which basically means he can stretch and morph his body however he wants. And his really only weakness is that he can only stretch so far. If I were to give myself a rating on this alien, it'd probably be a 5 or 4 out of 10, because I could have been more creative on the design. And on the powers, I could have added something else.
Tasman.
This is Tasmad. He is yet another alien like Wrath, Hacksense, and Masculand. Tasmad has basic superhuman durability, superhuman strength, and stands at 5'7". And like I said, he's another alien like Wrath. You already get how his power works. While Wrath makes the user angry, Masculand makes the user stupid, and Hacksense makes the user an egomaniac, Tasmad makes you go absolutely insane. Like, you keep your morals and stuff, you're just absolutely insane about it. And Tasmad has another ability called Berserker, where basically he's like an actual real-life Viking berserker. They quite literally struck fear into their enemies by just taking so much damage, it's unbelievable. And berserkers just genuinely act like they didn't even feel pain. So that's how Tasmad's berserk works. He can take as much damage as he wants and he doesn't even feel any pain. But he's gotta be careful because he can still die. Also, his super strength's buff whenever he goes berserk. And any fighting style the original person knows, Tasmad can use and will put his own spin to it. Basically, he has a fighting style so unique that it cannot be predicted. This alien's the most unpredictable alien in Omnitrix because of the fact that he's the most insane alien in the Omnitrix. But there is one thing that makes this alien absolutely insanely dangerous. For the user, by the way. Which is, if you're Tasmad, you start to slowly go insane yourself, because his mind's just that messed up. So if you're Tasmad for too long, you will physically go insane. And I don't mean like, oh, you keep your morals insane. No, you are completely and utterly insane. Like, Joker levels insane. If I were to give myself a rating on this alien, it would be a 6 out of 10. And that's only because I had a little trouble with the design. And that's all the aliens. Now it's time to document my experience. And basically how it's going to be told is, first I'm going to tell you the process in making one alien, then I'm going to be saying which was the hardest one to come up with, and finally giving a rating on how hard is it to make an original Ben 10 alien. So let's get into it. And first, this is how I came up with all of them. First, I started with a power. Like, what power should I give this alien? So for Salolighter, I started with the concept idea of fire. That was going to be the main driving force of his power. Then it was the way the alien works. So how does this alien light a fire? So then I take something from real life, which in this case was a salamander, and then take another thing from real life, which was oil, and then mish it together to where it makes sense. Then you get something like a salamander that secretes a mucus like oil. And then you come up with extra things it can do, like being able to ignite the oil and shoot the oil in a spray or spit it out. And then there's the name. And for that, you just gotta combine things. Like, it's a salamander that lights things on fire. Salolighter. And then for the concept art, you just gotta take all the elements from what you're inspired by and then mish it into a, like, alien-like form. And then you just use references and then draw. It's really that simple. Now, for the alien I had the hardest time creating, it was Masculand. And that's because there's so many strength-based aliens in Ben 10, it was hard to come up with an idea for a strength alien, even though all the strength-based things are already taken. That's the only reason why I had such a hard time with Masculand. But the rest of them were pretty easy and fun to come up with. Like, the one I had the genuine most fun coming up with was Rizzard, because I thought it was very funny that I had a magic raccoon named Rizzard. And if I was to give y'all a genuine rating on how hard it is to come up with an original Ben 10 alien, for this I'll say 10 is extremely difficult and 1 is extremely easy. My genuine rating on how difficult is it to make an original Ben 10 alien is 4 out of 10. It was pretty easy. All you need is something called an imagination. I know it seems mythical, but it does exist. You just have to remember, anything's possible. It's Ben 10. There's quite literally 2 living nuclear bombs, an armadillo that is also a power tool, and a quite literal alien god! So if you want to make your own Ben 10 aliens, you just gotta keep an open mind. It doesn't have to be realistic. And if I had the money and the okay from Warner Brothers Studio, I would totally make my own Ben 10 reboot. But I do not have either of those things, so I can't do that. But yeah, it is very easy to make your own original Ben 10 alien. And that's really it. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Be sure to do the things that hundreds of other YouTubers have said before, and I'm not going to repeat them. And before I close this video, 2 things. If you want me to do a part 2 to this, I would love to, and I'll give you 20 more aliens. And document the experience, of course. And if you guys want to make your own concept art of my aliens, go right ahead. All I ask is that you credit me, like how Bizarre Squad XVZ over on TikTok has. He has redrawn 5 of my aliens already, and I cannot wait to see what else he does. And the ones he's done is Salolighter, Falcoy, Swolfe, Akra, and Rizzard. Even though most of them are very different from mine and leave out some parts that are actually a part of the powers, they still look amazing. And I encourage you guys to redesign my aliens. I'd love to see it. But with all of that being said, I'll catch you all in the next video. Goodbye! Like the video, or else you're gonna be turned into Fast Track for the rest of your life. And nobody wants that.
I can't find him. I can't find him.
I will fight to Texas and kill you.
I can't find him. I can't find him.
He made them alone.
I can't find him.
Leave them alone.
I swear to no.